For Venezuela, the dream of joining BRICS is not a luxury, it is an existential necessity. For more than a decade, the country has been battered by one of the worst economic collapses in modern history. Hyperinflation, shortages of food and medicine, US and European sanctions, and the mass migration of millions of Venezuelans have left the nation fragile, isolated, and desperate for new lifelines. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. To Caracas, BRICS membership represents a chance to break free from Western containment and to join a bloc that is increasingly shaping global politics outside of Washington's orbit. But the road to BRICS is paved with political landmines. Unlike Western institutions, which Venezuela has long accused of double standards, BRICS demands consensus among its members. Every member must agree on new entrants. This means that a single nation's opposition, in this case Brazil, can derail Venezuela's ambitions indefinitely. Maduro and his officials insist that Venezuela is a natural BRICS partner. With its colossal oil reserves, vast mineral wealth, and central location in the Americas, Caracas argues that its entry would strengthen BRICS's global economic influence. Yet despite this rhetoric, Venezuela has been unable to overcome the most basic obstacle: trust. The seeds of Venezuela's isolation in South America were sown years before the current BRICS negotiations. When Venezuela joined Mercosur in 2012, hopes were high. The accession was celebrated as a triumph of Chávez's vision for Latin American integration, one built on solidarity, sovereignty, and independence from U.S. influence. Chávez promised that Venezuela would harmonize its laws with Mercosur standards, adopting common rules for trade and respecting the bloc's human rights commitments. But Chávez's death in 2013 changed the trajectory. Maduro, his successor, was less adept at coalition building and less willing to make concessions. By 2016, Mercosur partners concluded that Venezuela had failed to live up to its obligations. The suspension, though intended as temporary, has now lasted nearly a decade. For Venezuela, this exclusion has been devastating. Mercosur is not just a trade bloc, it is one of the world's economic giants, with a 2024 GDP of $5.7 trillion United States dollars. For Venezuelan businesses, exclusion meant loss of access to markets, loss of opportunities for investment, and isolation from regional supply chains. Politically, it signaled that Caracas was drifting further from its neighbors, even as it tried to position itself as a leader of a new global order. Maduro responded defiantly, arguing that Mercosur's rules clashed with Venezuelan sovereignty. But critics point out that this insistence on sovereignty has come at the cost of opportunity. Today, Venezuela's continued suspension from Mercosur is both a symptom and a cause of its isolation, a reminder of promises made under Chávez but never kept. Tensions between Caracas and Brasilia came to a head during Venezuela's July 2024 presidential elections. Maduro declared victory for a third consecutive term after only 80% of ballots had been counted. Regional and international observers immediately raised concerns. Brazil, now under President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, demanded transparency. Lula's request was simple: release the full vote count and publish the protocols for each polling station. This would have allowed verification of the results and reassurance to skeptical neighbors. But Caracas refused, framing the demand as interference. To Lula and others, the refusal confirmed suspicions of irregularities. As a result, Brazil withheld recognition of Maduro's presidency, joining the EU, the US, and several South American governments in questioning the legitimacy of the election. This decision had profound consequences. Brazil is not only Venezuela's largest neighbor and a Mercosur heavyweight, but also the chair of BRICS in 2025. Without Brazil's recognition of Maduro, Caracas's path into BRICS is blocked. What might have been a diplomatic disagreement has hardened into a strategic obstacle that Venezuela cannot bypass. The irony is stark. Only a decade ago, Chávez and Lula were close allies, united by a shared vision of Latin American integration. Now, under Maduro, the once warm relationship between Caracas and Brasilia has soured into mistrust, jeopardizing Venezuela's chance to enter the very alliance that Lula himself has helped elevate on the world stage. In October 2024, Maduro made a high-profile trip to Kazan, Russia, for the annual BRICS summit. Venezuelan state media presented his presence as proof that Caracas was already a part of the global conversation. For many back home, the hope was that a direct meeting between Maduro and Lula could break the stalemate. But fate had other plans. Lula was hospitalized days before the summit after suffering a serious injury, leaving Brazil represented only by a delegation. The much-anticipated presidential face-to-face never happened. Instead, Maduro met with Vladimir Putin, who reaffirmed Russia's support for Venezuela's membership but reminded him of BRICS's core principle, consensus. Every member, including Brazil, must agree. Without unanimity, no new members can join. Putin's words were carefully chosen. Russia values Venezuela as a strategic partner, but Moscow cannot impose its will on BRICS. The message to Maduro was clear: unless he reconciles with Lula, BRICS membership will remain out of reach. If Brazil represents an obstacle, Russia represents an anchor. Over the past decade, Caracas and Moscow have built a wide-ranging strategic partnership. For Moscow, Venezuela provides a foothold in the Western Hemisphere, a rare ally just south of the United States. For Caracas, Russia offers protection in the United Nations, access to technology and resources, and a political shield against Western isolation. Putin has consistently defended Maduro, praising Venezuela's fight for independence and sovereignty. For Maduro, Russia is not only a partner, it is a guarantor that his regime can survive international pressure. Venezuela has also sought to cultivate ties with India. Following the BRICS summit, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez traveled to New Delhi for talks focused on energy cooperation. For Caracas, India is an attractive partner, the world's third-largest oil importer, hungry for reliable supplies. While India has not openly endorsed Venezuela's BRICS bid, it has not opposed it either. New Delhi tends to prioritize pragmatism over ideology, and if Venezuelan oil can help fuel its growth, cooperation may deepen. For Maduro, India represents both an economic partner and a potential voice of balance within BRICS, one that might eventually counterbalance Brazil's resistance. Another crucial element of Venezuela's foreign policy is its partnership with Iran. Both countries, heavily sanctioned by the West, have developed an unconventional but pragmatic alliance. Iran has provided technical support to repair Venezuelan refineries, supplied processed oil, and even established a drone development base at the El Libertador Air Force Base. In exchange, Venezuela has shipped gold to Tehran aboard flights operated by Iran's Mahan Air. This barter system reflects the depth of Venezuela's crisis. Despite sitting atop the world's largest oil reserves, its lack of refining capacity forces it to depend on foreign partners. For Tehran, cooperation with Caracas extends its influence into Latin America, unnerving Washington. For Maduro, Iran offers a model of resilience under sanctions and a lifeline when few others are willing to engage. Above all, China has become Venezuela's most important economic partner. In 2023, Beijing accounted for 40% of Venezuela's imports, far surpassing Brazil's 13%. This dependence reflects a broader shift. China supplies not only goods but also technology, loans, and infrastructure projects. Caracas sees Beijing as a partner that does not condition aid on political reforms, unlike Western institutions. For China, Venezuela provides access to vital resources and influence in Latin America. Yet this relationship comes with risks. Venezuela's heavy reliance on Beijing deepens its isolation from neighbors like Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, who view Caracas's tilt toward China with suspicion. In effect, China has become Venezuela's economic anchor, but also